Okay, good evening, guys. It's our another episode of African political issues being discussed. We're going to be talking about Miss Chidimma, who just dropped her title as Miss South Africa because of hate messages on social media, xenophobic and Afrophobic hate messages. And to discuss that with me is Mustafa as well as Warifa and Lerato. You guys are welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you, everybody. So, yeah, I lived in South Africa for 7 years, and there's a triple standard. Like, my mom is from the U.S., my dad's from Nigeria. Whenever I met people there, especially when they were black, they said, just say you're American. We don't want to say you're Nigerian. And a lot of the times, if you were from Mozambique or from Zimbabwe or Nigeria, they would say Africans, as if South Africans, Black South Africans, are not Africans. That's the only point I'm going to make. And this thing seems to be targeted because this is a lady who they say has a mother of Mozambican descent. That means her mother is most likely South African. Now they're trying to say that the mother did fraud 23 years ago to lie about her nationality. In South Africa, if one of your parents is South African and you're born in South Africa, you are South African. They're looking for a loophole to say that the mother lied about her heritage. And if you notice, they don't say that the mother is Mozambican. They say the mother has Mozambican heritage. And they were getting angry because the lady celebrated with her Nigerian family. And Gaten McKenzie, who I used to respect, who I don't respect anymore, said that she's not South African enough. So I'm going to go because Lorato lives in South Africa and he's South African. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Uh, um, actually, I don't have
Yeah,
thoughts on this situation.
yeah,
Uh, it's very difficult.
yeah. I know because there's nationalism
Dealing
everywhere in the
with
world. And one thing before you
yeah,
continue,
yeah,
we have to
yeah,
remember that South Africa is a country created by white people. It's not an African. It's not a country created by African people. We have to remember
sure,
that.
sure.
And when whites win Miss South Africa, nobody has a problem of their heritage of people who have killed black people and destroyed the country. Continue. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to begin with, one of my initial thoughts was that this is a beauty contest.
Yeah.
With all the problems that beauty contests
Yeah.
come with in terms of I'd like sexualizing women in the way that they do and whatever. I know that they have adopted and changed over time, um, in order to become a little bit more intellectually based and all that stuff. But it's still just a beauty contest.
And you still have to be
Uh,
slim and have straight hair. Continue.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's like one of the first issues that stood up to me. But secondly, I think what you mentioned is also quite right. That what people usually what is happening in the country when people speak about foreigners, and there's this fear against foreigners. It's something that's targeted
Can I
at
say one thing?
other black
Can I
at
say one
other
thing though?
black people.
Can I say one thing? It's not all foreigners. They don't have fear of white foreigners. It's only Africans.
Yeah. But yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
often targeted at
Yeah.
other black people, or other African nationals,
Yeah.
from other African countries within the continent. Uh,
Unless they come from Morocco or Algeria. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, well, I guess, but you will have similar problems anyway in any case. But it is
Although I'll say
and
this much, in Nigeria, that's not the case, and in West Africa, when other Africans
yeah,
come, they're welcome, and there's not a. I mean, they still worship the Europeans more, but everybody's welcome in
yeah.
Nigeria. Yeah,
So
yeah,
so so also, I think also the thing is, there's like a spectrum
yeah,
within the country. I mean, you've been here, you know
yeah,
how welcoming most South Africans can be,
yeah,
regardless of where you come
yeah.
from.
I'm
Um,
speaking
but
generally. I never. I mean, I didn't
yeah,
have
yeah,
any
yeah,
problems, but a few things, but not much. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But of course, there is mostly people who are struggling with issues of poverty, with issues of service delivery, and things like that. I think I referred to this meme of the rich person, withholding resources and telling the native that the immigrant is coming for your resources.
Yeah, for your food.
So a lot of it is sparked by this idea of resource scarcity and whatnot. I mean, when you think about the Miss South Africa pageant, South Africans have only been Black South Africans have only been actively engaging in Miss South Africa since like 1992 or something.
Yeah. And they also
Uh,
have people of Indian descent who have won.
yeah. But it's still like something that we're seeing. But even within the South African context, we still have problems of uh, tribalism as well. So this to me is like an extension of tribalism.
Yeah, but I think
Um,
it's worse because if a white South African wins, black people are still proud in South Africa. And I'm not
yeah,
saying
but
that, and my thing is that we need to determine what the meaning of South African is because Kamala Harris, who's running for president of the US, her father is from
yeah,
St. Thomas Islands and her mother is from India.
sure,
But Americans proudly claim her as American. So is South Africa, and what's
sure.
going to be the definition of South Africa? And we have to keep in mind that South Africa is a country that was created by white people. It wasn't created by blacks with our will or the will
Yeah,
of
yeah,
black
no,
people.
that's
Yeah.
that's. I mean, I think within the political shows, we've spoken about how weak the foundation of this country is,
Yeah. And I would
as
say most
as
most
as
countries are
an idea,
terrible.
as
Countries and
yeah,
flags are
yeah,
terrible. Yeah.
in terms of a national identity,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and of course, this happens within that space that we're grappling with
Yeah.
defining a national identity.
Sorry, can I add one more thing? And if her mother is
Yeah,
from Mozambique, that means her mother is Southern African. Do you understand what I'm saying? And her mother has Mozambican
yeah. I
heritage.
mean,
Yeah. So to me, this, and she grew up in Soweto. This is this is what they call it. What's that word they use? De facto. She's a de facto South African, and they're trying to say they're doing like what's his name did, the rapper. They not like us. That's what they're doing. But continue. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of these problems have been happening, and of course now this is in the spotlight, then other things that would happen at the hands of foreign nationals then come into the
Yeah. Yeah.
argument. In spite of this not having anything to do with all those
Yeah.
arguments.
But you know what I would
Um,
add? Here's what I would add. So let's talk about drugs. People say Nigerians sell drugs. I lived in South Africa. I lived in Cape Town, the most violent city in town. Not calling out anybody. The colored people sell drugs and meth. Tanzanians sell. Nigerians sell. A couple of years ago, South African Airlines was bringing in drugs. So what I want to say is that the drug thing in South Africa, every part of the culture is part of it. The black South Africans are a little bit less of it. Okay. But the drug business in South Africa is enabled by mostly South Africans. And what I mean by South Africans is white people who are at the corporate level, the government itself, and people who are in government. They allow it to come into the country. Then you have a crime. For example, most of the rape, I'm not trying to pick names, there's a lot of rape and female violence in South Africa, and it's not done by foreigners. It's done by South Africans. So why are they vilifying one group when every group does the same thing? They just highlight when the other ones do it. Yeah. And the
I
drug
mean,
problem in South Africa, if you took the Nigerians out of South Africa, the drug problem will continue. They'll find new distributors. They'll use black South Africans. Continue. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you're wearing the mega hat, so
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
you know how Americans are with
Yeah.
people
Oh
from
yeah.
the South.
Yeah.
They, whether
It's
it
the
be
same problem. Yeah. So
Mexicans
South Africa has the
or
same problem
Colombians or Cubans,
that the
right?
US has. I would call it similar to right wing. Xenophobia is right wing. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
no. It is a very right wing
Yeah.
sort of issue. because it doesn't understand what the what the what the rights of people who are migrating are, because
Yeah.
movement happens naturally, whether
Yeah, and
we.
the South Africans, a lot of the South Africans that they call colored are people who are of Indian and Malaysian descent, and they came to South Africa and now they're accepted. So migration will always take place anywhere. In the U.S., there's a lot of people from Ireland and from other places. This is the idea of there's no sound idea of a nation because you just have land and you have people migrating. Sorry, continue, and then we'll move on. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I think there was this quote, coincidentally, that I saw this week, by Isaac Asimov, that said, when stupidity becomes patriotism, then being
Yeah.
intelligent becomes
Yeah.
very dangerous, you know.
Yeah, and you know what's the
Uh,
lady, the Indian writer, the Arundhati Roy. You know her. She said flags and nations are symbols of death. Basically, they are bigotry.
yeah, yeah,
Once you say this
yeah,
is a flag and this is our nation, you separate yourself from humans. And remember, we're talking Black consciousness is a human movement. And we still need to address the issue of migration and immigration in the U.S. and South Africa too. But the way it rose up now is ugly. That's the only thing I think. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
yeah. So some of the problems that need to be addressed are problems of education, and problems of resources.
Yeah,
Uh, if you bring people who lack resources to come and live in the same space as other people who lack resources,
it's going to
those
cause
people
problems.
are going to fight over those resources. That is like a social inevitability, right? So we
Yeah,
have to
but
look
also I'll check you on one thing though.
at the power structure
Yeah,
that
but
is making this possible, and put questions to that power structure,
and
as opposed to
there's
putting.
also a split thing in which you're bringing some people to cover skills that the others don't have, but it's not the others' fault. It's because of they're being oppressed by white supremacy. So, for example, if you go to Wits University, when I went there, a lot of the professors were from Zimbabwe and Nigeria, and there were less from South Africa because of the history. So those guys that are coming, they're not taking resources from others. They're covering a skills gap, which needs to be met by the country within, so that we don't need to bring
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah. Like I think there you're addressing a different
Yeah,
a
but
different
what I'm saying is there's an
social
anti-Nigerian
caliber.
sentiment. There's an
Yeah,
anti-Nigerian sentiment, which is why they went after that woman, not because of her Mozambican mother, but because her family's Nigerian. But what I'm saying is a lot of the Nigerians who come there, they're not stealing resources. They're actually adding to the economy. Sometimes bad, sometimes it's drugs, but sometimes it's other things. They're adding to the economy and they're not taking from the poor. That's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm trying to make. So for them to
yeah,
attack her because of the Nigerian thing, I think that goes down to pure xenophobia because Nigerians aren't stealing resources in South Africa. And a lot of Zimbabweans aren't. But in the shanty towns where you see the people, it's usually people from Mozambique and Zimbabwe who cross the border because South Africa has more money. You see what I'm saying? But when Nigerians come,
yeah, yeah.
they
But
don't.
what yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So what I'm speaking about when I'm speaking about the social
yeah,
inevitability
yeah,
is when you look at it, I suppose, from a classist lens, that people who live in what we consider the the poorest class,
yeah.
uh, and are put together in those situations, they will wrestle over the little that they
Yeah,
have.
but my
This
argument is
is
that
what
that's
this is
usually
why they.
Zimbabweans and Mozambicans that have been killed by xenophobic
Yeah, yeah,
violence.
yeah, yeah. This is why
Yeah.
then foreign nationals are identified as taking our
But here's
jobs,
one more thing.
taking
But
our
here's one
goods,
more thing. When
taking.
I came as American, everybody's like, "Yay, yay, you came." When white people come, they don't say the same thing, and that's the problem. They don't get angry at white foreign nationals. People from Bulgaria and Eastern Europe are coming to Cape Town, Cape Province, and causing crime and bringing in drugs and mafia and murders. And you don't see the people calling them
Yeah,
queer. Yeah,
it's not even widely spoken about, or
yeah,
thought about, right?
yeah.
Um,
So it
so
becomes
there
terrible
are
because
there
it's
are
like
those.
blacks attacking blacks. And I don't say we should attack whites, but when white foreigners are coming, who are actually the ones taking all the resources, everybody says welcome
Yeah,
to the
yeah, yeah.
country.
But I think it boils down to that. When I was coming to the point about education,
Yeah,
it boils down
education.
to
Yeah,
the fact of inferiority complexes. black inferiority complexes that we seem to struggle with. And of
Same thing
course,
in America. In America, when blacks from Africa come, they say, "Go back to Africa," and then
exactly.
the Africans say, "Shut up, you guys, you're slaves." You're
Um,
but when the whites come, oh no, no problem, I don't care. And I'm not
yeah,
saying they
yeah,
should be
yeah.
angry, but black people, I always say black people are the most racist people on earth because we hate black more than whites do. That's always my argument. Yeah, yeah. That's what it seems like. We hate black more than whites hate black, or we're just as
Yeah,
racist. Yeah, but we're not racist towards white. We're racist towards ourselves, and
yeah.
that tends to become self-hate. Self-hate. Yeah,
Yeah, so it becomes a very complex and layered thing when
yeah.
people are uneducated about
And
what it is and what it means to
yeah.
welcome
And also, they're getting
immigrants.
angry over a beauty contest, which has nothing to do with economics and resources.
Exactly.
Which is a
And
beauty contest is a Western paradigm thing. We don't. I've never heard a beauty contest in any. Oh yeah, sometimes you might have the beautiful princess or something who gets married, but those are like dowries and marriages. We don't have that. And then
yeah,
it's all
yeah,
straight hair, and even the thing is run by a private company, which is not even South African. The competition, it's
yeah,
terrible, man. Yeah,
yeah. Here are some of like the miseducation points,
yeah,
that come across. Uh, the one that keeps being spoken about is how much other African nations housed South African exiles during
oh
apartheid.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that is still not highlighted. I mean, culturally, we have not even had symbolic exchanges
yeah.
of artworks or
And
sculptures or
and
anything
and
like any symbols that show that we give thanks to the people of Botswana for housing us, or to the people of Lesotho,
yeah,
Swaziland,
yeah.
Zambia,
Mhm.
Mozambique,
Even so, Nigeria during that time, Nigeria said that
and Namibia, respectively. Yeah,
Nigeria said,
if you
sorry, I'll add this point. Nigeria said that if any South African or Rhodesian airplane, this is Murtaza Muhammad, flew over Nigerian space, they will shoot it down. That was during apartheid and
oh yeah,
Rhodesia.
oh yes, yes. Uh, and then I mean, if you read something like Eskiam Patlele's Africa My Music, you will understand how well integrated the South African community was
Oh yeah,
within the
and in fact,
continent.
this xenophobic
Um,
movement started after 1996 because South Africans were going to Germany, going to Nigeria, going to Mozambique, going to where was Samora Michelle from? Malawi or somewhere like that, places like that. So my thing is that this
Mozambique.
new
Samara Machel was from Mozambique,
Mozambique, yeah,
but
and then Tanzania and all these places. So this thing is a new
yeah,
movement which started after, especially with the prevalence of the drugs and then the movement of people into South Africa after the apartheid government got down. More Africans were migrating inside, and it caused pressure. Thank you. We've talked a long time. Beautiful points. We're going to come back to you, but let's go to Warif. What are your thoughts on this situation? Yeah, is Warif here? What about
Warif,
you, Afolabi?
Warif is here.
Okay,
Warif is
good
muted.
evening.
He
Maybe
must
it's
be
not.
watching the
Good evening.
football game on his. He must be watching the football game on his Google phone.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Good
What are
evening.
your
Yeah.
thoughts in general? Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, no matter what they said or what might be happening, she's South African because
I believe so.
what
I
I
believe so. Yeah.
yes, because in their constitution they said once from 1995, once you're born in South Africa, you're a South African, and she
You
has
have
been
to have
there
a
for
South African
23 years.
parent. Yeah, a parent.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Then for the Minister of the Art and Culture, Art and Tourism to say that looks like insecurity. That means she's a threat to them, and which it shouldn't be. Then also celebrating with the Nigerians, that those are her roots. Those are
Yeah.
her people. Even though
Yeah.
she has South African people there, it's just the normal human instinct to do that, to celebrate. So I don't see anything wrong in that. Okay, for example, now, yesterday, there's this Nigerian girl that represented Germany in short put. And today, while they were interviewing her, she said her dad is Nigerian, her mom is Nigerian, but she's German. And she
Yeah.
sang a Yoruba song. So the bottom line is that the South Africans, they shouldn't see Nigeria as a threat. It's for the
Yeah.
good of South Africans, because by the time she wins the Miss South Africa, she goes over to Miss World. She will not represent Nigeria. She will represent South Africa. Whatever thing she'll be talking about, she will be saying it as a South African, not as a Nigerian. So
Yeah.
to me, I just see it as a threat to them, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and the thing is that I'll give you another example. When, like, for example, Obama, his father is from Kenya, but nobody says he's Kenyan. He's
Yeah.
American. He was born here. He lived here, but he can still. People in Kenya can still celebrate when he becomes president. And this thing is not about country; it's about culture. So where's this lady?
Yeah.
Her dad is Igbo or Yoruba.
Igbo.
I think it's Igbo.
From the name.
Igbo.
I think it's Igbo.
Igbo. So it's Igbo culture. They're celebrating. When a lot of the African guys, when they win rugby, their culture is Afrikaan, which is closer to Dutch. Which is why I'm saying the whole concept of a country is irrational, because it's cultures. So South Africa is a multicultural country. That's what I'm saying. You have Xhosa,
Yeah.
you have the Malay, the colors who kind of like mixed identity. You have the San, and they're very different
Zulus,
cultures. You have
the
the
Africans.
Zulus, you have the British, but they all call themselves. To me, nationality is more of legality rather than culture. South Africa but South Africa also has an internal culture. No matter who you are, you're gonna like some braai, you're gonna like some pop, you're gonna like some windhoek, you're gonna like some kipdrift, you're gonna like some ganja. My point being is there's a lot of different things, but it's a conglomeration of different cultures. Same thing here. Where I live in DC, most people speak Spanish and they are American.
Okay.
Everybody I'm around speaks Spanish because I'm in a Spanish area, but they are still American. And before America became America, there were Spanish people here, Spanish speaking people. Some people speak English. In the northern part of the country, they're German descendancy. So the idea is that this thing is beginning it's an attack on the identity of South Africa. South Africa's identity should be flexible, but at the end of the day, you should still, for example, not that you're born there. Let's say she was born in South Africa and then she left and lived in Nigeria all her life and came back. Then I can say, okay, she's not authentic. She was born in Soweto. She lives there. She speaks the language. Her mother is of Mozambican roots, which means her mother was actually South African when she gave birth to her. I'll go to you, Afolabi. I want to hear what Lorato says. We'll give him special time because he is from South Africa. What are your thoughts, Lorato?
Yeah. I think maybe let Afolabi speak and then
okay.
I'll speak.
Lorato is the wise philosopher. He chooses his words quickly, quietly, and respectfully.
Great
What about you?
philosopher.
Afolabi, what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have basically touched on everything. But I feel the portrayal of Nigerians and other foreigners as threats to South African opportunities is a generalistic kind of view, and it fosters division. This narrative fails to consider that not all foreigners engage in illegal activities, and that some actually contribute positively to the economy and culture of the country where they're resident. Moreover, framing foreigners as competitors rather than collaborators is a view that risks resentment and xenophobia, and there's no place for it, particularly when they're directed at individuals that are born in South Africa who have every right to the same opportunities. There's a fine line between overzealous patriotism and xenophobia.
Yes.
So there has to be a balance.
I also want to say something.
Yeah.
If it had been, and I don't have a problem because white South Africans say, if it had been someone who was Afrikaan who won, the blacks would be happy. So it needs to begin. How do blacks? What do they think South African identity is? Do they think it's just whoever was there from the beginning when it was founded by the whites, or do they think it's a flexible concept?
Exactly.
That's what I have to say. Go ahead.
You're right. Yeah. There's actually even a confusion of national identity. And like you rightly mentioned, if it was someone of Africans, they wouldn't have even bothered to go to the Department of Homeland Security to investigate anything. They would have celebrated it.
No, they did that. They did that to force her out because most likely her mother committed fraud. They did that to force, because her mother was probably a migrant who never got her papers properly.
Yes.
And they use that as a loophole. But my question is, why are you going to that length
Yes.
over a beauty contest? But you don't go to that length when you have a university named after Rhodes, who killed millions of Black people or was behind the killing of millions of Black people in Africa. They don't mind that their universities are named after Rhodes, but you're worried about a beauty contest, which is a European domain anyway. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's all I have to say. Yeah.
And like you rightly mentioned, this is a beauty contest, and it's being run by a private organization. Now it has become a national issue, which shouldn't be so.
Mhm.
You know, it's a biased view that equates ethnicity or cultural heritage with
Yeah,
being
and
a foreigner.
nationality has nothing to do with ethnicity. Nationality has nothing to do with ethnicity.
Exactly. You know, so the perspective is problematic, and it undermines the principle that being South African is not about one's name or heritage, but about citizenship and values, basically. You know, so
yeah, and you know, they may have, and here's the thing, they may be able to get her on a technicality. If her mother committed fraud, then technically she's not a South African citizen. But my question is, do they want to go down that road? Do they want to deprive someone who speaks the language, who's lived there their whole life, whose mother is Southern African, on a technicality, which is based on which is based on British law, law, because South Africa, like Zim said, is a country without a name. That's all I have to say. Go ahead.
I agree with you. They may decide to go that route because some of the political figures that we have respect.
It's politically motivated. And then D.A. McKenzie.
Exactly.
So let me ask,
Look at someone like
I'll ask you this question. Loretto, I'll ask you this question, then when D.A. McKenzie said she's not PA, McKenzie, the leader of PA, said she's not South African enough. What do you think about that statement?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big one, you know, when we must now speak about who is more South African than
the other.
But I guess P.W. Botha is South African enough, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Are those people more South African than others, or
segregated?
It may be the case, because my argument is that South Africa, like the U.S., is a white supremacist nation. That's really what it is.
Yeah, and it could be very problematic because there are people in Zimbabwe who share a surname with me.
And not only that, Venda and Zimbabweans, it's a blur. Zimbabweans and Venda people are more alike than the rest of South Africa.
Let's just speak about like there's Xhosa, there's Amaxhosa who live in Zimbabwe, who share the same language, same culture, you know. And those people do not live there because they are not original South Africans or whatever. They had to move there because of extenuating circumstances.
Yeah. And also, some South Africans in Ndebele. Some South Africans are in Ndebele, right? I think maybe I'm wrong.
As well.
Yeah, and some Zimbabweans are in Ndebele.
So the question of ethnicity becomes too fluid for us to sort of try and hold on anything. Mozambique has a lot of Abatsonga. We call them Tsonga people.
Oh yeah, Tsonga, yeah.
Who are also in Limpopo and Mpumalanga, you know.
Yeah.
And within certain communities in on social media, we've been having this conversation about how we can always connect ourselves to other Abantu who live outside of
that's basically the Bantu, which is a word made up by the British, but you know, the people.
Who live outside of these.
Well, look at this guy. Look at this guy that won the 200 meters. Letsile Teboho. To me, he's Botswana, South Africa. They're the same people. If you see the guy in the language. Also, shout out to Letsile Teboho, who won the 200 for the Olympics. Thank you.
Yeah. So these become trickier things to sort of navigate. If also it's a Motswana who is here in South Africa who could change citizenship, or a South African from the Northwest, from Mafikeng, who could go to Botswana and change.
No, I'll give you an example. I lived in South Africa for 5 years, and I had the option of becoming a citizen. I didn't finish the paperwork, but if I had done that, then legally if I had a child there, they can run for Miss. But it's totally ethnically different.
Mr.
So the
Universe.
point, yeah, Mr. Universe. but
Yeah.
but
So
that's but to me, for me to run for Mr. Universe is more ridiculous than for that lady to run who speaks the language, who was born there and grew up. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah. So I think even when Warif started and said whatever that they want to do, in as much as they can follow up and find out that the mother did actually commit fraud, when Chidimma was a baby, and did not even have any role to play
Yeah.
in that matter. They have to look at her as a human being who is born here in this
And
land.
not only that, she has the values of the country because she grew up. Her friend, everything was South. She has the values of a South African.
Yeah. But they have to look at her as a human being
Yeah.
and address her without necessarily, in as much as they could try to criminalize the mother and all those things, right?
Yeah.
But this also then speaks to the issue of the prevalence of corruption and fraud
Oh
within
yeah.
the South African system,
Oh, I can tell
which
you a story.
which a
When
lot
I was
of
in
people
South Africa, I went to
benefit.
Home Affairs and I paid some. No, I went to pay someone to give me a license and documents for my car, and it was someone working within the driving division. So I know.
Exactly. So so
But I think
those are
corruption
some of the
is a
things.
big problem everywhere in the world.
Yeah, those are some of the things that I think are
Yeah.
pointing the finger back at South Africans to say you have officials that act in this way,
Yeah.
therefore that allow for certain things to happen,
Yeah.
that could potentially in the future be problematic. Um, and also then now to speak to the issue of the patriotic alliance, right?
Yeah.
Um, the one person who has been upfront about this is Gaten, who is the Minister of Arts and Culture,
Okay. Okay.
um, right?
So
And
that's why he's the
I
one
know,
speaking out. Yeah.
yeah, I know for a fact that the arts and cultural department has been involved in the past in trying to rid the country of Afrophobia, right? There's been campaigns
Okay.
within there. So this becomes a very problematic thing that someone who is a cultural minister is sitting there and is making these kinds of utterances.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think he should
very
have just
like,
stayed silent. He should have stayed
yeah,
silent.
yeah, like very. I think it's not only that, is that I think it's that he's very irresponsible in stating those things. I think that there are diplomatic ways of saying we need to look at this thing and investigate it and see what it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then see what it should be. But his utterances are xenophobic and Afrophobic
And what
at
he
best.
said, and he didn't say she's not South African. He said she's not South
South
African
African
enough.
enough.
It would have been better. It would have been better for him to just say she's not South African. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. So so
Yeah.
so 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 there are all those problems, and now, like, when you look at, I mentioned Eskiam Pachale's uh, Africa My Music, a
Yeah.
cultural masterpiece, and it would seem to me that possibly this is an arts and culture minister who hasn't read that book, or who has not reflected on the importance of someone like Mama Miriam Makeba, famously
Yeah. And Mary
known
Makeba
as,
was a Pan Africanist. Yeah.
yeah,
Continue.
famously known as Mama Africa, right?
Yeah. Mama
And
Africa.
yeah, and the Department of Arts and Culture is supposed to espouse to the principles that people like her sort of stood for. Ntate Huma Sekela also, when we did I remember when we did an Afrophilia campaign called "We Are One" with a brother from the music band. I'll remember Mulifi. I'll remember the name of the music band now.
Okay.
Uh, he spoke to Hugh Masekela, and he interviewed him about this idea of African unity and what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, and this is what culture is. The Blackjacks. He's from the Blackjacks. The
Yeah.
basis from the Blackjacks. Yeah. So this is what within the cultural space, cultural exchange and integration is
Yeah.
supposed to,
And also,
and
I
now
add
we
one more
see,
thing: the British and the Afrikaan, they have also made South Africa a richer country. What I mean by richer culture. You know, the braai and everything, footsack. Those things are good too. So it's not like we're saying, because remember, it's about humanity. Those types of things can be incorporated, which is what makes South Africa one of the most interesting countries in Africa, because it's a conglomeration of the West, of people who migrated from Congo, the San, and everything. So it's not like we're saying, oh, it's only black. But to me, every human being is black, as far as I'm concerned. Continue. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
there's all these things that we need to consider culturally before we
Yeah.
make these sort of decisions and these sorts of utterances on who is more South African than who, and who is not South African enough. Uh, and of course we do need to sort of like educate people a little bit more
Yeah.
on this idea of Pan-Africanism and what it
Yeah.
means, and how that can also be used to address some of the ills that come with uh, whether it's the drug trafficking or the human trafficking
Yeah.
and all that stuff. You know, how the different nations of Africa can address these issues
Yeah.
where
Hmm.
people of your citizenship or of your nation are found in another country doing all these things.
Yeah. And I'll keep on
How
saying
does
that
that country respond?
if there
They,
were no foreigners in South Africa, there would still be drug trade. There would still be drug trade, even if there were
yeah,
no foreigners, because the drugs are expression of the violence that's been in South Africa for 400 years. Same thing with the U.S. You don't see a drug problem in Nigeria because it doesn't have a history of oppression, but
yeah,
You see it in Brazil and
but
Nigeria.
also they would have always there would have always been immigrants, because this is
Yeah.
where labor came. A lot of people
Yeah.
who came from Mozambique
Is he? I
because
feel like you there? Oh, yeah, you're there.
of
Okay.
the demand from the mines and all those things.
Yeah, but you
A
need
lot of
labor. So that means
people,
South Africa has a labor problem. I hate to say this is a terrible joke. You don't have enough skilled drug dealers. It's a joke. But the point is that there's a labor problem. So you whenever there's a labor problem, you bring in people, whether it's for engineering or drugs or whatever, you'll bring in people to cover that thing. But the criminal thing is a big issue. And you know what's funny? A lot of the people who came from Malaysia and India, they were brought here to suppress black people with violence. You understand what I'm saying? They were brought to South Africa to suppress black people with violence. Like a lot of the people that came from Malaysia and in those areas, they brought those people to be policemen because the whites were outnumbered by the blacks. So they brought in more people from Malaysia and India and places so that those people can
We have
become
less than a
citizens.
minute, guys.
What do you think?
yeah,
What do you think, Lorato? Yeah, about that. They brought in a lot of
yeah,
We
labor.
have less
no,
than
for
a
sure.
minute.
I think Afolabi wants to wrap up.
Oh yeah, wrap it up.
We
Wrap
have
it up.
less
Yeah.
than we have less than a minute, guys.
Yeah, but you can finish it. You can finish it, Lorato, on that point. But don't worry
Okay, so
about it. Yeah.
Lerato, you can round
Yeah,
up.
no, but yeah, I think until this country has a name and has an identity,
Yeah, it doesn't have a name yet. Yeah.
that is black conscious, and has some kind of mindset. We are going to be struggling with some of these problems for a while.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you. Okay.
yeah.
All right, so yeah, take us out, Afolabi. Thank you. Very good show, everybody. Very good show.
Okay,
I didn't know that a beauty contest show